Hello, good evening, and welcome to Normal Islands Live. I'm Curtis Daly. I hope you're all well. Hope you had a fantastic weekend. It's a pleasure to be joined by Ben Mclaine. Ben, I would say how are you, but I know you've been up since like 4 o'clock this morning, so you're hanging in there.
I'm hanging in there exactly, but I can't think of a better use, a better reason to stay up late into the night after I got up at 4 a.m. in the morning, stupidly, than to for us two fleas to get together to enjoy the demise of Keir Starmer. We two fleas, as it were, or three fleas once Callum joins us, who get to enjoy Keir Starmer's demise. So that's well worth it, you know.
To be fair, I think you could probably say you're right about the two fleas because I left the Labour Party. I technically left in 2018. And that wasn't me declaring to leave. I actually went travelling and it lapsed. But by the time I got back, Labour lost the 2019 general election, and I was just not very enthused to join it, rejoin it. So I might have left before the flea comment cut off. But we are fleas compared to or to what the Labour Party think of us. But yes, I'm so glad you're with me tonight. We are going to talk about all things Labour. I mean, there's many other stories too, but the Labour Party is the top story for tonight. So stories for tonight. We are going to be talking about Piers Morgan versus Rachel Millward on Trans People in Question Time. Of course, we're going to talk about the Labour Party. I mean, I think it's up to 67 MPs that have called on Keir Starmer to resign. It's probably higher now. It's going to be hard to keep up with. We're also going to be talking about Owen Jones and the right wing, the right toys, losing their minds because he wants to speak the truth on Israel, and more stories. Remember to like the stream and make sure you're subscribed. And if you want to support us, then you can go to turnleftmedia.co.uk/support to help fund our work. Let's go to the first story. After all the questions surrounding the small number of Green Party candidates that made problematic statements, and of course some were just unacceptable, the BBC finally asked Reform about some of their candidates saying the most viral things. Why the Green Party responded by condemning certain statements. Deputy Reform leader Richard Tice had a very different response.
But many voters do still have concerns about reform. And just as you and I have talked about many times, you have had problems on lots of occasions when some of your candidates' views have been revealed to be offensive. Now, as Bridget Phillipson mentioned, but we were going to ask you about this anyway, one of your new councillors who's just been elected in Sunderland previously suggested online that people should melt Nigerians to fill potholes.
We have an internal party process. But here's the point.
Well, it's not a very good one if somebody who expresses that can be elected.
We've heard all this smearing and the sneering. Let me tell you what people are really concerned about.
Forgive me.
Laura,
that's not
I'm going later to a campaign against the scourge of anti-Semitism, right, which is the greatest threat facing us here in, particularly in London, but elsewhere across the UK. That's what people are really concerned about. We've stood up strongly for the Jewish community. And if people have said daft things, of course it'll be looked at. But, you know, let's just remember we've got a party that has been successful, that is now the anti-Semitic Green Party. That's what people are most worried about.
I want to ask you about your party. One of your new Sunderland councillors, so a man who was elected to represent Reform, suggested melting Nigerians to fill potholes. Is that person who's expressed those views somebody you are happy to see represent Reform?
This weekend, we are celebrating our incredible successes. Like any party, you have internal party processes to look at where people have said or done the wrong thing.
Do you condemn those remarks?
Laura, I condemn anything that is wrong and inappropriate.
And is that wrong and inappropriate?
The key point is voters have heard all of this smearing and this sneering against all of us, and they voted for more reform because they want action, they want delivery. They're sick of the failures of the Tories and Labour that have impoverished them because of mass immigration and because of net stupid zero. That's what really winds people up.
Richard,
I mean, that's a really odd response. I mean, if you're faced with a question about a candidate who says, melts Nigerians to fill potholes, I don't think that's daft. Do you? I think that's abhorrent. That's disgusting. And the fact that Richard Tice could even condemn it. I mean, she said, at least condemn those words. And he said, I condemn things that are wrong. well, obviously, we don't like things that are bad, of course, but the fact he couldn't say that is a disgusting comment, and if that person made that comment, we're going to make sure we get rid of them. Whilst also, look, we have long talked about strategy from the left when it comes to media smears and how we've called for Zach Polanski not to apologize and to, try and reframe the conversation on your terms, for example. However, if you are faced with quotes like that, you can't say, that's smearing, that's sneering. No, that's not smearing. That is literally holding you to account. This isn't just some random Reform member. This is someone who was elected and, as far as I know, is still a Reform councillor newly elected, right? And look, I do have a problem with the media bringing up specific, again, random members and to try and tarnish the party name like that. They did it with Jeremy Corbyn's Labour. They've done it to Zach Polanski's Greens. I do have a problem with that because like any random member can say something horrific. And obviously that can't be, that doesn't mean it's endorsed by the leadership. But that's the game the media have tried to play. That's the game the media played with the Labour Party and the Corbyn and Zach Polanski under the Greens. And despite the fact that Laura Kuenssberg did bring something up about reform, during the week up to the run-up to the local elections, it was dominated by attacks on the Green Party. I also thought it was kind of crazy to say, people are concerned about me going to an anti-Semitism march. Well, first of all, Nigel Farage was also invited to this so-called standing up to anti-Semitism march. The man has said horrific anti-Semitic things. It just goes to show that, like, is this a serious march? I don't know. I cannot fathom that kind of response. So, look, I'm glad that Laura Kuenssberg did bring that up. But Reform have not had wall-to-wall coverage when it comes to racist things from the Reform Party. I mean, Zach Polanski did a rally and someone held a Reform banner and did the Nazi salute. There was barely any media coverage of that. Absolutely insane. And then, of course, Richard Tice manages to sneak in the anti-Semitic Greens. Even though, that Laura Kuenssberg asked that question, she did a terrible job of, I thought, pushing back. She allowed him to speak. She allowed him to say, well, I'm going to an anti-Semitic, standing up against anti-Semitism march. Look how anti-racist I am. Look at my anti-racist credentials. Insane. But why don't the media investigate this? So this is a graph. I think it was posted by Philip Proudfoot. He didn't make the graph, but he shared it. And it shows British attitudes towards Jewish people and Israel. And if you look at the Green Party, they are, in terms of attitudes, one of the least anti-Semitic. When it comes to Reform, they tend to have higher anti-Semitic attitudes. But when it comes to Israel, the Greens are quite anti-Israel. And Reform, the attitudes from Reform voters and members are pro-Israel. It's almost as if there is no connection between supporting Israel and supporting Jewish people, and Reform literally shows that. So why aren't the media looking into that? Right? Why aren't the media saying, but there does seem to be a unique problem with the Reform Party, because if you're Reform, you're more likely to be anti-Semitic or hold anti-Semitic attitudes. Yet the media has been trying to paint the idea that the Greens are specifically anti-Semitic. It's crazy. Now, again, I mentioned about how Farage was invited. Of course, he made anti-Semitic claims. Again, I think this was forgive me for saying, probably a pro-Israel march. I mean, Peter Tatchell went, and he was attacked by people there because apparently he was pro-Hamas because, he's nominally pro-Palestine? Insane. That comment to put to Tice is by no means the only candidate. There have been a plethora of racist comments from other Reform candidates. Ben, what do you make of Tice completely downplaying that really, really disgusting comment? And what's your assessment of the media been and how much they've covered the Greens compared to Reform on the question of dodgy candidates?
So first of all, let's think about the candidate, because actually, if you read Hope Not Hate's original article, it's not just the meltdown Nigerians comment, which is bad. Don't get me wrong, that's really bad. But he's also like an avowed sexist as well. It's interesting how those things often go together. Glenn Gibbons, who, by the way, on the Reform leaflet that's been handed out, is called Glenn Gibbons. Like, they actually spelt his name like even though his name is spelt Gibbins, which is if you're called Glenn Gibbons, don't start on anyone. Like, obviously, change your name first. Don't start on it. That's a bad idea. Don't stick your neck out. But yeah, they misspelled his name on all their leaflets, first of all, as Glenn Gibbons. But he was also complaining about women's sports commentators back in 2017 and said that women sports commentators should stick to cooking, sewing, and homemaking. He really doesn't like women. He really doesn't like foreigners, obviously. And also, he doesn't like being able to spell properly. He doesn't like our language. I just find it interesting that he misspelt can't the same way twice in two posts, one in 2017 and one in 2019, in the exact same way. He misspelled, as in the word can't, cannot, right? He spelled it C-A-R-N-T. I genuinely don't know how you can make that mistake, like, however many years apart. It seems to me that this guy must be putting on some sort of persona, because I genuinely don't believe that that's a sincere mistake. He's misspelled it in exactly the same way several years apart. It doesn't make sense to me. He's a strange guy. Yep, no doubt about it. He's a strange guy. And Richard Tice is a dickhead, obviously. But on a slightly more nuanced point, Richard Tice is also using the veil of Israel to cover for racism, cover for anti-Semitism in his own party, cover for misogyny in his own party, and cover for, of course, anti-Black or anti-Nigerian racism within his own party. The whole anti-Semitism is a scourge thing made me think back to a video I watched from AJ Newsbroke, who used to produce a show with Matt Lieb and Francesca Fiorentini. And I remember Matt Lieb, who's Jewish himself, saying that Steve Bannon had been asked a question about, why did Steve Bannon say that he didn't want his children to go to school with Jewish people, with Jewish children, or rather he had concerns about them going to school with Jewish children. And the media were asking, are you anti-Semitic? Is that what's going on here? And Steve Bannon turned around to them and said, no, I'm not anti-Semitic. I've always been a supporter of the state of Israel. And Matt Lieb was saying to him, that's not the question I asked you. That's not even close to the question I asked you. So the idea that anti-Semitism and support for Israel are completely incompatible just doesn't work in the first instance. But also, it's constantly used as this cover. We're probably going to be attending a Tommy Robinson march at the end of this week. I wouldn't be surprised if the same people who are being racist and anti-Semitic there are going to be waving Israel flags. There's a lot of things that I think we can take from this. But one of the things is the Aaron Bastani point, which is always worth bringing up, which is the right once used to say that we should talk about countries, we should stop talking about other countries and start talking about the needs of people in Britain. And they were wrong to drop that point. They should have kept talking about the needs of people in Britain. And it's the lesson that the Green Party needs to learn, because you're absolutely right. Like, coverage of the Greens have been held to totally different standards to the ones Reform are being held to in this election. Completely different standards. But we can learn a lot from them. We need to don't admit fault. No concessions. Absolutely not. Because did you notice the way that Richard Tice operates? Did you notice the way that as soon as Laura Kuenssberg asked the question, he said, sure, we have problems with our vetting process, but let me tell you what people are really concerned about. And he tried to move it on to anti-Semitism, but that didn't work. She tried to redirect. So he said, let me tell you what people are really concerned about, and then moved on to net stupid zero and the effect, or supposed effect, of that on cost of living, right? I'm not going to lie. The Greens need to watch that and learn from it. As soon as the point is brought up, he moves straight on to the things that he wants to talk about, so that he's setting the narrative. He's a dickhead. I agree, he's a dickhead. But he's got the right idea when it comes to media performances. He's been well trained when it comes to media performances, and the Greens need to learn from that. They need to start as soon as a topic's brought up, and I know I'm repeating myself, and I'm repeating myself so much because I'm hoping that somebody in the Green Party who's in a position is watching this and can go, we need to start looking into bridging and how we can just quickly move things onto the cost of living. Whenever anything that's inconvenient for us comes up, we have to know the connection between that and the cost of living so that we can make that jump as soon as possible. Richard Tice kind of does it clumsily here, I'm not going to lie.
He doesn't have the riz when he's doing it.
Absolutely. Yeah, but it's absolutely the right thing to do strategically, right? Obviously not the right thing to do morally, but in that situation. But the right thing to do strategically.
No, I mean, look, sorry. We very much agree on strategy. Like the sort of the dual idea, a good phrase. That the what I'm thinking here is, whilst Richard Tice is appalling, and I do want to see him squirm when it comes to these particular comments, there are things the Greens can absolutely learn from them, because that is media training. That is reframing the conversation. And cleverly, what he'll do as well is not say, I want to talk about these things because I want to talk about, although that's what he wants to talk about. He says, I want to talk about these things because the people want to listen to that. And you, the media, are against the people, which is, I wish I saw more attacks on the media itself from the Greens. I wish I saw Zach say, hold on a second, this is why people don't like the media. Now, don't get me wrong, he's done it before. He did it with Ed Balls, which was fantastic. So this is why people hate the media. I want to see that more, because then you can pivot and say, I have an excuse to ignore your point and talk about this because the people told me to do so. And if you don't want me to talk about that, that means you don't care about the people. But yes, I mean, you're absolutely right. I do want to move on though, because we've got a lot of stories to get through. But yeah, reform. I mean, the Greens should learn from reform in ways, obviously not on policy. They won't, will they? On strategy. Okay, next story. Last week, Piers Morgan and Green Party co-deputy leader clashed over trans people. Morgan, in a transparent move to remove any form of dignity towards trans people and try and catch Millward out with a gotcha, asked her the question, you know what it's going to be. But Millward's answer completely embarrassed him.
There's no love lost between you and Zach.
Do you think women have penises?
Do you know what, Piers? I think you have a uniquely strange obsession with people's genitalia.
It's a pretty straightforward question.
I'm sorry, that's a weird question.
It's actually a straightforward question.
Piers, it's a weird question.
What's the answer? What's the answer?
The answer is the trans community in this country are treated appallingly. This is a vulnerable group of people.
That wasn't my question. That wasn't my question.
It's not.
You don't want to answer, do you?
I'm telling you that I think
you don't want to answer.
I'm telling you.
Because of the woman, you know it's ridiculous.
I know that you're being ridiculous.
Really?
Honestly.
Why?
I tell you what, let's hear from our audience, because they.
I love that answer so damn much. It's good in multiple ways. One, because it makes Piers look like an idiot. I mean, that's what we should be deploying, by the way, to say, why are you obsessed with genitals? You're weird and creepy. Stop thinking about what's between people's legs. Do you wake up in the morning and think about penises? There's nothing wrong with thinking about penises, by the way, but just admit that. But two, it also doesn't degrade Rachel herself or trans people more widely by dignifying it with an answer. Now, my assessment as to why it's not good to answer that question is, one, the question's asked in bad faith. I mean, Piers Morgan isn't concerned about the trans community. I mean, he tweets later on that, I'm not transphobic. I just want to ask that question. The thing is, though, if by denying trans people's very existence isn't transphobic, then what is? But two, you're not interested in a conversation. Now, had Rachel Millward said, yes, a woman can have a penis, of course that provides the soundbite that Piers Morgan was expecting and hoping for, and then she gets clipped up everywhere saying, oh my God, she thinks a woman can have a penis. But also, Piers Morgan wouldn't have responded by saying, but why do you think that? He would have went, see, you're crazy, you're crazy. And this is the thing with gender criticals. They'll ask you, can a woman have a penis? And the thing is, though, they're just obviously saying, well, the left are stupid because they can't answer the question. We can answer the question, but as soon as we give the answer that you want to hear. You're not happy to have a conversation. You're not at least intrigued to say, well, why do you think a woman can have a penis? Because I can then say, well, guess what? Sex and gender are two different things. Gender is a social construct. Gender is no more real than it is to label something a chair. And then you get into a far more nuanced conversation about human biology. Because, of course, gender criticals say, well, human biology is obvious. A man's a man, a woman's a woman, that's it. Why are you so fucking arrogant? Why not be humble and understand that there's so much more to learn about the human body? In 20, 30 years' time, there might be some more science communication that comes out that even gender criticals can't ignore. So it's just not playing ball with it. But I thought it was a fantastic answer. Now, look, question time isn't a real debate format. It's a place where people can just shoot their talking points. I mean, we talk about trans people. We have lots of trans and queer viewers. I'm happy to have a discussion about it. But if I'm going to be on a panel and I know you're looking for that answer, I ain't going to satisfy you. And guess what? The audience, they clapped with Rachel. Now, speaking of Rachel, I caught up with her earlier today to discuss what happened on Question Time and transphobia more broadly. Piers Morgan did the whole, can a woman have a penis? Tell me your response to that. I mean, it's very difficult to try and answer something in that debate format. But yeah, what are your thoughts about Piers Morgan springing that on you?
The thing is that it's just such a kind of degrading question. It's just a really revolting, obsessive starting point, isn't it? It's just a sort of the wrong way in. And I'm not, he's asking it in bad faith. It's not a serious question. It's another reason for him to mock trans people a little bit more. And it's like, I don't know, I've had messages, I think particularly from people in the queer community more widely, trans community obviously, but also parents of genderqueer kids who sort of said, thank you so much for just like stopping him in his tracks and standing up for us. And it's just that thing of like, I don't know, it's degrading. We don't need it. Why would we even go there in that way? But yeah, he's a nasty man. And also people sort of saying that the impact of the way that he talks to and about trans people is real, right? And the impact of this sort of revolting response to the trans community online in particular, and now I'm kind of getting that, like, it's like that response, it's not a joke. Like, people can sit there and say all these nasty things, but there are real humans who suffer real abuse in their daily lives for being who they are. And this is never okay.
It was cathartic to watch, and I think it's you answered in the way I just would have answered, because look, I understand when it comes to Question Time. Look, I don't buy into these debate forums. They're not debates. They are talking points. Which party can put across their talking points? And when it comes to trans people, one, just for dignity reasons, you can have a long conversation rather than just point scoring, which is what Piers Morgan is doing. But the right wing or gender criticals want you to say the soundbite. So Piers Morgan says, can a woman have a penis? If you say yes, there is no further exploration there. There's not even like, oh, but why do you think that? It's like, oh, see, you're crazy. So like, it is obviously difficult to convey that. But also at the same time, I think you're right. Even answering that question in their framing is wholly undignifying. Now, Piers Morgan has been tweeting at you. Of course, you've been rationing him back by pointing out that he's just obsessed with genitalia. Again, brilliant response. But he says, I'm not transphobic. I don't have any animosity towards trans people, but I just want to know this question. I feel like that's a load of rubbish. A lot of people who say, no, I just want to know the answer to this question.
Of course it is. I mean, it's ludicrous, isn't it? It's also just, I mean, if there was a real conversation, it would be a conversation about human beings being kind of endlessly complex. And that is actually a wonderful thing. It's actually not just human beings. It's actually all biological species are endlessly complex. And things don't fit into these delightfully clear categories, should you think that kind of clarity is delightful. I actually think it's quite delightful that we don't fit into these kind of perfectly drawn categories. And I think we just got to get used to that and get over it. Like, it's, for me, it's actually just as simple as that.
It's odd because people will often tell you it's a biological reality, but actually, like, maybe we need to be a bit more humble and understand there's so much about the human body we don't understand, and maybe it's way more complex. Who knows in 20 years' time that everyone is ultimately going to accept trans people because they're like, oh my god, it is biological reality. Like, we shouldn't be so arrogant to assume that we know everything there is to know about the human body.
Something though that just to jump in there is that there's an arrogance which I find, well, there's a real deep arrogance in telling somebody else that their lived experience of the world is incorrect and that you understand who they are better than they understand it. So I might not like get it, like I might, there might be sorts of reasons. You might tell me something and I might be like, any kind of thing about yourself, and I'd be like, wow, I can't really relate to that. Like, I don't understand that. But I can't tell you, no, sorry, you're not experiencing that. That to me, that's overstretched, like that, and that's arrogant. And I think that a lot of the transphobic stuff that is just comes in streams. Now you've said anything, the sort of outpourings on the internet. It's just like a fear of the unknown as well. It's like anything. It's like, I don't get it, so it must be awful, and then it's just a humiliation.
But you were telling me that after the clip went sort of viral, you had some messages from people largely positive. And of course, the online sphere, Twitter, if you say anything positive about trans people, hell just seems to descend on you. And I guess for a lot of people, they get quite depressed when they see that. But you're saying it's important to know that Twitter isn't real life, and actually the responses in real life from real people was vastly different.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, I think there was a lot of positive response. I think people sort of were really pleased that I'd, put my hand up to Piers Morgan, told him to speak to the hand. I think people like that. But I think that much more seriously, it's people, queer people, trans people have sort of said to me, what he says and the narratives that he perpetuates make a difference in our daily lives. And parents of genderqueer kids have said to me, thank you for holding up some dignity for the experience of my child and creating like a sense of safety for them. I think a couple of people have written to me saying, I feel safe with you in the position that you're in, that you did that, because just thanks for not allowing this sort of really dehumanizing, degrading language and approach to be perpetuated. Because there is a serious thing. It's like, in a way, it's a fun clip. It's like, I was sort of having fun with him, and that's the thing. And that's, sure, great. I mean, but it is serious that if we talk about other people in degrading terms, it really impacts people's lives. And we know that the trans community, have a vulnerability. I mean, it's incredibly challenging what they go through on the daily, but we know that suicide rates are high, mental health problem rates are high. We just need to treat everybody with respect and just, accept people as who they are. It's basic, isn't it? It's just that simple.
The Labour Party and Wes Streeting, in their view, they made a political calculation to essentially throw trans people under the bus. I still remember Wes Streeting going on. It was The Sun does print media, right? But I think they did like a podcast, The Sun of all places. And Wes Streeting simply says, he basically just spouted transphobic BS. It seems like the Green Party are really the only party that have spoken up for the queer community. I mean, the Liberal Democrats, I feel like they've been iffy. It's been quite prominent from yourself, even from Zach Polanski when he was deputy leader. He said it was really important. So do you find that basically all parties will have issues, but the Greens are seemingly the leading voice when it comes to protecting minorities, including trans people?
Well, it seems to be the way. I mean, I wish it wasn't. I think this should be a cross-party agenda to treat all people with respect, really. As in, I don't, you know what I mean? I wish this wasn't, I don't want this being party political football doesn't help trans people, actually. But certainly the Green Party is clear that trans rights are human rights, and we just fully respect these people and their experience. And, like I say, I think it's, I don't know, it's thrown, like, people say I'm betraying women. I'm like deeply confused by that. I'm a feminist. I've worked in the women's movement. I used to run a women's film festival. Like, I put probably 15 years hard work into that. And there is no contradiction. I just don't really understand that. And again, I just think it actually is enough to respect and honour people for who they are, and to treat them with respect at all times. It shouldn't be so hard.
The local elections results shown, the media can do this. Maybe the online sphere can be extremely reactionary, but I don't think ordinary people are really buying into it. I think you've had a really successful night. Well, I say 2 nights, actually. It took so long to count the votes. I know, it was 2 or 3 days. But I actually think, despite the clips online, despite, what Piers Morgan might say, I think generally people quite like decency, and it certainly hasn't caused issue for the Green Party. So appreciate you taking Piers Morgan to task. Always thoroughly enjoyable. But on behalf of our trans and queer viewers, it's much appreciated that the Green Party are not going to capitulate on this and are really pushing back.
Yeah, and I really hope that I don't think we'll ever lose that. And as I say, that, that should apply to wherever people are coming from, really, and all different kinds of people. But I do think, I think things are uniquely tough for the trans community in this country. Like, when I went on Trans Pride, went to Trans Pride in Brighton a few months ago, and just sort of standing there listening to people and just thinking, just the depths of pain, really, in being told that you're not a legitimate person, that you don't, it's so kind of erasing, and this attempt to erase this community that's, again, these people have always been with us. Like, gender has never been that clear, and many people are, switch sides or in between. I mean, like, many and few, it's a tiny percentage, right? But it's part of the broad, wonderful spectrum of humanity, and we should never want to shut that down. How horrible, what a thing to do to humanity, to try and sort of oversimplify at the expense of individuals. So my heart is really with that community, and I sort of feel it and take it really seriously, that it's been an incredibly painful time with the Supreme Court judgment and the rest of it.
That was Rachel Millward, co-deputy leader of the Greens. Lovely to speak to her earlier. Ben, let's bring you in. I feel like you're itching to say something about Piers Morgan. Tell me, how do you think how do you think Rachel handled Piers?
Well, I think the question is more, how did Piers handle Rachel? Because he wasn't in control of that situation, and that's a good thing. I was a bit unsure at first who they were clapping, the audience, because there was, the applause sort of broke out, but it was a little bit unclear until afterwards Rachel got a moment to speak, and then did very clear applause after that. So I'm guessing that the audience very much behind Rachel, and I think it's worth sort of walking it back a bit and saying that when these people are claiming that they're speaking for women's rights or concerns about women's rights, it really is worth sort of bringing it back to your basic definitions. So when we're talking about sexism, what are we talking about? Well, we're not just talking about the hatred of women or the hatred of men. No, that's not a good enough definition of sexism, because I think there are legitimate reasons in the case of men more than women, and I think only in the case of men, actually, to be fearful or have an aversion to cis men. I think that's valid. However, I think that sexism is the attribution of negative characteristics to men or women on the basis of gender essentialism and the need to adjust society to account for those characteristics, right? So give you an example of that. Let's take an example from Glenn Gibbons, the guy we were talking about previously, the reform counsellor. He says that women belong in the kitchen, right? That's his belief. Why is that sexist? Well, it's because he is taking, from his point of view, he is talking about women's biology and the need to push women into a certain social role because of the biological characteristics that they that he thinks they have. And that, of course, is that being the basis of misogyny. TERFs are misogynists. They literally are. People who are transphobic are literally misogynists because from their point of view, Trump is a women's rights activist, right? Because Trump, who's in the Epstein files, millions of times, is a women's rights activist because he believes that trans women can't be real women. They occupy this topsy-turvy world where the women's rights position is that women are just talking vaginas. Legitimately, that is what their position boils down to, because you can, you put it to them and they go, well, no, I don't believe that women are just talking vaginas. Women are so much more than that. And then you go to them, okay, so what do you mean, like social construction? And they go, no, not social construction. Our biology is real. We face sex-based oppression. And they're right in a way that the oppression is sex-based, but it's based on gender essentialism. It's based on biological essentialism, right? And one of the ways that you can simply counter this is to go, well, what about intersex women? What about, say, women with Swire syndrome who have XY chromosomes? They don't fit that definition of all female, and yet they are still women. And they go, well, no. That's they're ordered in that direction. And you go, okay, so how do you decide who's ordered where? And they go, well, the women are the producers of the large gametes, right? So eggs, in other words, and men produce sperm, the small gametes. And you go to them, well, okay, but that implies that if it's all about gametes, that people who don't produce gametes, infertile people, must not have a sex. They must not have a sex and therefore, under your view, not have a gender. It's a completely contradictory worldview that fails to sort of grasp the nuances of sex and gender. I'm going to just sort of talk about this just for a second because I think it's really interesting. But it is a bit like trying to explain evolution to somebody who has just never encountered the concept before. And if they turn around and ask you, well, do you believe that we're related to chimpanzees? Right? If somebody had been asked that on Question Time and we were in the period where that was a large debate, which actually is more recent than you might think, to a Christian evangelical audience who don't believe in evolution, who believe in creationism, the question, are you related to a chimpanzee? Common sense would dictate, no, we're not related to a chimpanzee or another ape like a bonobo, for example. And yet the answer is so much more nuanced, so much more complex. And Rachel is absolutely right. But let's talk about the sort of like strategy for a moment, because understanding why they're correct and understanding the correct strategy are two completely different things. And as you know, my mind has been on strategy a lot recently. I think this is where Tim Walz went wrong, dropping the whole the Republicans are weird. Tim Walz should have stuck with that strategy, and I'm hoping that the Greens are now going to start picking that up and using it against Reform UK, because it's so much more effective. It's so much more effective than the sort of like liberal niceties. And I'm sorry to a lot of the Greens out there who want to take the high ground. I do understand, but you've got to get nasty with it. You've got to start calling these creeps out for what they are, because they're not going to treat you kindly. You are going to have to start punching them back. And I think that there's different approaches to this. For example, like my favorite answer when people ask me, can a woman have a penis, is yes, but only if it's long enough that she can wrap it around her neck as a scarf or use it as a draft excluder when she's watching Netflix. If it's smaller than that, then it doesn't count. Which I think is the best answer, because of course they're going to go, oh, you're not taking this seriously. And it's like, well, no, why would I take this seriously? If you want a serious answer, ask me a serious fucking question, right? And I think that's, in a way, what Rachel was doing there was like, come on, ask me a serious question. But the optics of this are really good because, and I do just want to point out, I ratioed the fuck out of Piers Morgan on Twitter, which, considering Twitter is such a fucking cesspool, I'm really happy with. And what I ratioed him with was a meme of the I can't remember the name of it, but it's the I think we should improve society somewhat meme, and the person popping out of the well and going, yet you participate in society, I'm very smart. And I just changed the person saying I'm very smart to, can a woman have a penis? And the sort of like crazy guy from another meme. And people like that. And why did that speak to people? Well, I think that spoke to people for much the same reason that Rachel got the applause there. It's because this entire framing is such a good setup for the Greens, right? Because Rachel was talking about the 99% versus the 1%. When she was allowed to talk, she was talking about the 99% versus the 1%. She was talking about inequalities within our society. She was talking about empowering ordinary people, right? And what did Piers Morgan come up with? Can a woman have a penis? Like, who the fuck cares, right? So somebody put the meme. This is the meme I was talking about. Thank you, Callum, if that was you that managed to put it on there. Yes, and the thing is, this is exactly what Rachel was doing, right? Rachel was doing that meme. Rachel was saying, we should improve society somewhat. And that means, by the way, some transphobes on Twitter seem to think that I was saying that we should improve society by advancing trans rights. I wasn't even talking about that. I was saying we should talk about the 99% versus the 1%, because I don't give a shit what's between your legs or what you identify as, what public fucking toilet you use. If I can't pay my rent, if I can't pay my energy bill, who the fuck cares what toilet a trans woman is using? Like, literally, who the fuck cares? And I think this has got to be the sort of narrative. It's so good for us. I cannot describe to you how good it is for the left, for us to be asked to be stating questions about stating statements about the cost of living and the crises that people are facing, and we need to address the energy bills, rent, the empowerment of local people feeling that they've got no rights at work, that they don't own their houses, and for the right to be going, yeah, but what about the trans woman? What about the trans woman? Because it's not just good for us in terms of like it's going to get us ahead talking about an economic message. It's also that we carry the trans people with us, right? It's because trans people benefit from that as well. Because if we're all singing from the same hymn sheet about cost of living, trans people's rights are going to be advanced because they're attached to the projects of the Green Party. And when the Green Party take power on the message of cost of living, they can then put protections in place for trans people. The conversation doesn't need to be had there and then because the conversation is far too nuanced. The conversation needs to be redirected to cost of living and let them fucking whine about it. Let them moan about it. Let them complain about it. While we drag it over to cost of living, let them obsess over genitals. Call them freaks. Call them weirdos. Let's go. Let's fucking go. This is what I've been looking for.
I loved your analogy of evolution, because yes, if there was a question time debate that happened all those years ago, right, and common sense will prevail, right, that we are not related, or we don't have a common ancestor with apes, right? That's what it is. They're like our cousins, right? We don't descend from apes, but they're a common ancestor. You would be jeered, like, you're an idiot. But that's just because we didn't know enough about evolution and science. And it speaks to my point, what I said earlier, is, like, we cannot be arrogant to assume that we know everything there is to know about the human body. There is so much more we can learn. So I thought that was fantastic. I think your entire rant was brilliant. I agree with everything you say. Do not make these people feel comfortable. Make them out to be creeps because that's what they're doing. And guess what? The average person doesn't think about penis as much as Piers Morgan, right? Even if you're a randy gay man, you probably aren't thinking about penis as much as Piers Morgan. The average people do care about their material conditions. And I think, again, Rachel's and your assessment was fantastic. I have to park that there, though. Do you want to just final word before we park that there?
Someone did suggest, and I think we should carry this forward, that we should start calling Piers Morgan Penis Morgan, and I think we should let's just move forward with that.
I love that. Hey, look, I mean, he shouldn't be opposed to that though, since he keeps on saying who's got a penis. And by the way, when Rachel, when that that debate or argument carried on Twitter, he kept on saying the same thing, because even I tweeted saying, well, Rachel Millward says, stop obsessing over genitalia. And then Piers Morgan's response is to quote tweet it by asking about genitalia. But also props to you for Rachel and Piers Morgan. God, it's coming to 8:20. We've got another 2 stories. So let's move on. Of course, before we do that, it's 2026, and we want this year to be big for Turn Left. We want to be more ambitious than last year and to really put us on the map. We are leveling up with having a part-time studio with guests in person, but we want to officially have our own space and for our contributors to be paid for the work we do. Your support over the years has been amazing, and we are ready to take this to the next level. We rely on small donations, so if you want to be part of a media organisation that seeks to destroy the oligarchs, then please head over to turnleftmedia.co.uk/support. There you can support us monthly on Patreon, or there is another link for a one-time contribution. Of course, you could become a YouTube member for 99p. Thank you. Now, I had to update my script several times for this one because the number keeps going up, but more than 65 Labour MPs have called on Keir Starmer to resign. Now, notable people including former Shadow Chancellor John McDonnell, Clive Lewis, Barry Gardiner, Ian Lavery and Upsama Begum called for his resignation. This is, of course, after the disastrous local elections where the party lost 1,500 seats. Former Deputy Prime Minister Angela Rayner said in a statement after the elections that blocking Andy Burnham was a mistake. Now, what I find remarkable is how lenient Labour MPs have been on Starmer. I mean, when Jeremy Corbyn was Labour leader, there were resignations before he could give his victory speech. Then we had over 100 MPs vote a no confidence in him, followed by the chicken queue. MPs couldn't wait to find any excuse to get rid of Corbyn. But Starmer, after all the scandals, including Peter Mandelson, and one of the worst local election results in Labour Party history, only 67 MPs have called on him to resign. Now, Keir Starmer took to a podium to set out his last-ditch attempt to cling on to power.
I've spent too much time talking about what I am doing for working people and not enough time talking about why or who I stand for. Because I can see how hard life has been during these decades of crisis. I can see that very clearly. My late brother Nick spent all his adult life going from one job to the next. The status quo did not work for him. My sister is a carer, working long hours on low pay, year after year after year. She didn't even get sick pay in the pandemic. The status quo did not work for her. For too long, we've ignored people like that. And there are millions of people in that boat, millions of people who don't get the dignity, the respect, the chance that they deserve to go as far as their talent and effort should take them. Millions of people held back because the status quo in this country does not work for them. I am fighting for them. We are fighting for them. I am their Prime Minister and this is their government.
Apparently, a comment section is saying it's up to 75 MPs that have called on his resignation. Interesting about that speech, though. He's saying, well, my sister's in social care. She gets low pay. All these things are happening. The economy is against ordinary people. I just want to point out, Keir, you are Prime Minister, and you've been Prime Minister for 2 years. And by the way, if he says, oh, look, we've had 14 years of Conservative rule, we have to have years and years of power to fix the foundations. I want to remind you of a particular Labour Prime Minister in 1945 called Clement Attlee. The country was in a far worse state. We literally had a bloody war. And his government built the NHS, the welfare state, and built council houses in just 5 years. I mean, regrettably, the country voted out the Labour Party just 5 years in. But in 5 years, that's what they created. And 2 years into Keir Starmer, he's had so many reboots, so many U-turns, so many phases. And guess what? People's material conditions haven't been transformative. Now, of course, he can list, policies that's been good for the country. A lot of Labourites will say, what about the Renters' Rights Act? Fine. I'm not saying that every single policy hasn't been good. What I am saying, though, is in the year 2026, we are in a world of multiple crises. Incrementalism is not going to work. And incrementalism is what you've been doing. And that is why you've lost 1,500 seats. People are not saying, oh, we would like the renters' rights bill to be updated. We would like a few more workers' rights here. No, people want fundamental change. People want a government to sort out the housing crisis. People want the government to sort out our public services, stop private profiteers coming for the assets that we need, but they're using it for profit. And they're not looking for, as Keir Starmer would say, sticking plaster politics. They want fundamental change, and you are not delivering that. I cannot stress this enough. The Labour Party, I don't care if you want to give me 10 policies that have been positive for the country. It's not enough. People need to feel change. It's not enough. And what he's basically saying here is, well, it's just a communication issue. The problem is, I've told you what I'm doing, just not why. No. The problem is what you're doing. It's not enough. And of course, Labour have poor comms, but again, they don't have the transformational policies that we need, this country needs. Now, within the speech, Starmer directed fire at Nigel Farage.
Because I want to remind you what Nigel Farage said about Brexit. He said it would make us richer. Wrong. It made us poorer. He said it would reduce migration. Wrong. Migration went through the roof. He said it would make us more secure. Wrong again. It made us weaker. He took Britain for a ride, and unlike the Tories, actually, who at least had to face up to it, he just fled the scene. And now he'll talk about almost anything other than the consequences of the one policy he actually delivered. Because he's not just a grifter, he is a chancer.
I mean, would this even work? I think it's doubtful. Has Keir Starmer learned his lesson? I mean, most will probably remain sceptical. However, he did recently announce this.
Steel is the ultimate sovereign capability. Strong nations in a world like this need to make steel. That's why we're backing steel in Port Talbot and across the UK. But in Scunthorpe, we've been negotiating with the current owner, and a commercial sale has not been possible. And now a public interest test could be met. So I can announce that legislation will be brought forward this week to give the government powers, subject to that public interest test, to take full national ownership of British steel.
Now, if that was a speech Keir Starmer made in his first week of being Prime Minister, that could have set the tone for his government. People would have been like, do you know what? I voted for change, and this seems like change. I mean, we've had decades and decades of privatisation. I vote in Labour, and within 1 week, Keir Starmer's talking about nationalising steel. But no, it's been 2 years, right? Even after Nigel Farage flirted nationalising steel, now he's saying it. Now, of course, nationalising steel is objectively the right thing to do. However, he should be going beyond that and nationalising all key industries. Ben, has Keir Starmer finally learned to lean into popular policies, again, such as nationalisation? And do you think it's just too little too late for the public to be convinced to back Labour again?
Yeah, okay, so first of all, we can't start with that. In this moment, we are all Diane Abbott. We're all Diane Abbott. We are in our sunglasses, looking in the sun. Okay, it's been a bit miserable today, at least where I am. But we are nonetheless. We're in our sunglasses, in the sun, sipping our mojito, watching this guy burn because he just has no beliefs. They don't believe anything. To quote Hamilton. Jefferson has beliefs, Burr has none, right? One of the reasons that people are choosing Nigel Farage and Zach Polanski over Kemi Badenoch and, more importantly, Keir Starmer is that these people believe things, right? That, like Keir Starmer and Zach Polanski and Nigel Farage, you might not like their politics, whatever side you land on, but they do actually come across as though they believe things. that you can be convinced that they actually believe the things that they are trying to sell to you, and they are pushing to sell those things. The problem is, of course, Keir Starmer doesn't believe anything, so he can't convince you of anything. As you say, he's right to move to nationalise steel. Of course he is. But, like, Nigel Farage is already moving to nationalise steel. Like, when you're being outflanked to your... You could kind of call that your left. It depends on your reasons for nationalising the steel, right? If you are doing it for militarisation purposes, I'd say that's not as left-wing. But if you're doing it to protect British jobs and British people, sorry, my chest is awful at the moment, then that's a legitimate left-wing thing to do. And in a lot of ways, Nigel Farage outflanked Keir Starmer to his left. And that should be embarrassing for Labour, and it's part of the reason that they're dying. It might well be the end for Labour. Honestly, this might well be the end of the Labour Party. It might go the same way as the Whigs in British politics, like it just eventually dying out. Honestly, there's still so much they could do to radically change this beyond nationalising steel. They could nationalise energy, and then they would be the saviours of people throughout the next winter. They could literally reduce people's energy bills by nationalising energy and going all out on green energy projects, and proving Richard Tice so wrong about what actually lowers people's energy bills, and how green energy can help them. But they could also simply keep reform out in the first place. Just literally introduce proportional representation, change the voting system, reform the voting system. If you have to name everything after, if you want to copy reform all the time, you could copy the word reform into reform the voting system, because you could keep reform out of government and make it so that they never achieve a full majority and they never get the world that they want to see. That's absolutely the case. I want to say about the Farage and his attack on Farage was basically Brexit is bad, but also I won't do anything about it. And this is what people find so frustrating about Keir Starmer, is that he tries to both sides everything and then ends up fucking it up, because he'll take the right-wing position and then have to walk that back when he realizes that actually it's a load of shit. He's done it with the small boats, right? Except I guess he hasn't really walked it back, but he did that same thing of like agreeing with Farage initially, and then it just hasn't helped him pick up any votes. But that policy, that underlying policy, has stuck around. And I think it was Femi pointed out, I was watching a lot of videos through the day, and Femi, in reaction to this, pointed out Keir Starmer is not committed to rejoining the single market. He was actually asked a question, I think, afterwards about rejoining the single market. And he said he wouldn't rejoin the single market. And it's like, well, if you believe that Brexit has damaged our economy, okay, fair enough. But then you have to follow through with that belief and actually commit Britain onto a good path. You can't do this thing where you criticise Nigel Farage for being bad at the same time as following Nigel Farage down the garden path. It really doesn't fucking work. And they need to stop doing it. But it might be already too late, because that introspection that I was talking about on the last show that I was on, that introspection is just gone. They've created such an authoritarian system that they are incapable of the required amount of introspection to be able to actually critique themselves and be able to change and adapt in a meaningful way. And sorry, but they are going to go the way of the dodos. They're going to go the way of the dodos. They are going to go extinct because they've put everything into this project. They put everything into the briefcases, into the sensibles. And Keir Starmer did everything he was supposed to do according to the Blairites. And it's all gone wrong for him.
I mean, I picked up the same thing when I was watching his speech. It's very difficult to say, well, Nigel Farage's biggest policy was Brexit. That's caused so much damage. To then not turn around and at least say, and this is why I'm making a policy on closer ties to Europe, right? People know I'm a Eurosceptic Remainer. shall we say, right? But even I could look at that and think, but it doesn't make any logical sense. If you're going to attack Brexit, fine, then you do at least have to say that's why we should rejoin, or at least join some kind of customs union.
Yeah.
And that just shows how he still has no political idea about anything, because obviously when you have a message, you point out what's broken and there's your solution. But he used Brexit to attack specifically Nigel Farage. But if you're going to invoke Brexit, you're basically saying Nigel Farage brought us Brexit. It's really, really bad. But we're going to still do nothing about Brexit and keep your life or the country a lot worse. So surely that's no better than Nigel Farage then.
Yeah, it's literally the same thing that he does when he criticises Nigel Farage for racism or xenophobia. Like
Yes.
when he dismisses Nigel Farage as a racist or a bigot or a xenophobe, like he doesn't have a leg to stand on because he's copying the same policies. It's like the disconnect is just unbelievable, and it's no wonder people are leaving Labour in droves.
I want to ask you about Andy Burnham, because Angela Rayner brought him up. She made a big speech and she said that it was a mistake to block Andy Burnham. Of course, many other Labour MPs are using his name. I mean, do you think he could make a drastic difference to Labour support? And would Andy Burnham becoming Labour Prime Minister be bad news for the Greens?
Would it be bad news for the Greens? I think it would be a total cultural victory for the left in a lot of ways. And you might think that's surprising, because I know a lot of people are going to say in response to that, but he's a Blairite. What are you talking about? And they would be correct. However, like, how did Andy Burnham get to the position he's in? He didn't do it through fucking PFI contracts. But that's not how Andy Burnham became renowned as the mayor of Greater Manchester. He became renowned as the mayor of Greater Manchester through infrastructural investment and democratic localism. All stuff that the left has been talking about for years. If he's carrying those ideas with him, then that's a cultural victory. If he isn't, he will crash and burn. But it's not him that would be the defining factor. And I don't know if they understand that yet. I think Labour might be doomed either way. I don't think that putting Andy Burnham in place would be enough to save them. But I think that it would be the same kind of cultural victory in a way for the left, and perhaps in a smaller way, as securing the European Union referendum was for UKIP and Nigel Farage back in 2015. Because it's an admission of, oh, we have to adapt around what this smaller party wants, because otherwise they are going to take our votes. I don't know how you could read it any other way. And that, like, Andy Burnham is seen as a more left-wing figure in the Labour Party. If he doesn't maintain that, as I say, he's going to crash and burn. But if he does maintain that, total cultural victory for the left. The first time I met Zach Polanski, I said to him, look, I need you to understand, what your role is here, because I don't think it's realistic that the Greens would be in a position where the leader of the Greens would become the Prime Minister. Like, and I need you to understand that. I just want you to do to Labour what Nigel Farage did to the Tories. Take their votes, take 20% of the country and hold it hostage and say, if you do not work with us, then we'll simply replace you. As it turns out, Zach Polanski did a lot better than I was expecting. And
I think he took your advice and thought, you want to bet, Ben?
Yeah, I know. He literally, like, he was like,
it's good. That's a good thing to be wrong about, though, isn't it?
Oh yeah,
they are on their mark.
However, I want to be really clear. What Zach said in response to me was, "Fuck you, Ben. I'm going to be Prime Minister." No, he didn't. He said what he said was that he understands that it's a project larger than himself, and he wants to lift up other people around him. That's. I mean, I couldn't. I thought that was a really good answer.
Yeah,
and about 2 weeks after that, I joined the Green Party. So, you know, I think that's a good answer. But yeah, what does it mean if Andy Burnham is like put in place? Well, one, I don't think they're going to let him. I think they'll burn the party in order to stop anyone slightly to the left of Adolf Hitler taking power. And you know, they will absolutely burn the Labour Party for that. But even if they do, total cultural victory to the left. Fuck you, we're streeting.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we'd even get to that point. You know, we saw what happened in Gorston and Denton. They blocked him, so this question could be completely irrelevant.
Yes.
Let's move on to our final story. I think this will be quite a long show. So right-wingers are once again pretending context does not exist. The latest meltdown centres around Owen Jones. Now let's look at a clip being shared online, shall we?
What else was Hamas supposed to do on the 7th of October?
Now notice that clip was 4 seconds long. 4 seconds. And that clip was shared and we had people responding with this. So Koshna Cockney said, "Is this man mentally ill? What else was Hamas supposed to do on the 7th of October? How about not raping, burning alive, beheading and kidnapping Jews, Owen? How about that, you disgusting, repugnant, disgusting little man?" Well, first of all, there was no evidence of rape, beheading, and burning. I mean, that's not downplaying crimes. That's having journalistic integrity. And a lot of the crimes that were accused of what happened on October 7th is what Israel has done. Last year, I watched a teenager burned to death because Israel struck a hospital. You want to talk about rapes? How about the facts that reported in Navarre media? Dogs are trained to rape Palestinians. What about the IDF soldiers who were acquitted when they raped a Palestinian with a knife? But of course, you know, the Zionists, they don't care about that. Eve Bartlow, who is a Fox News contributor, the viewers are well aware of her. She gave her 2 pence. She said, "You have to be so far gone to think you have the moral high ground here." Well, they tried. I mean, these right-wingers really, really tried. But we all know that this is a clip that's being completely taken out of context. Anyone with half a brain cell would know that. Owen Jones obviously isn't letting this slide. You shared this clip last July. You know it has been taken out of context so that the meaning is reversed. So why don't you stop lying to your followers and publish the full clip? No surprises there. So let's do just that. Let's take a look.
You would find this question offensive if I put it to you. If I had said to you, in 2023, 240 Palestinians had been killed that year by the Israeli state, including 40 children. What else was Hamas supposed to do on the 7th of October? What would you say?
Are you justified?
No, that's the point. I'm saying you would say correctly, there was never any excuse for war crimes. This is an outrageous question for you to address.
Completely out of context. He's literally saying that as a rhetorical device. But look, if you ever see someone share a 4-second clip of a debate, just disregard it. Just disregard it. And what have you got to hide? I mean, the clip makes it abundantly clear that he was not endorsing the October 7th attacks. He was criticizing the selective moral framing used by mainstream interviewers and commentators when discussing Palestinian resistance and Israeli state violence. But are you surprised that Zionists are lying? No. One of the most frustrating things about media coverage of Palestine is the way history constantly begins at the most convenient Western political narratives. The conversation always starts on October 7th. It's called datification. As though Palestinians simply emerged from a vacuum one morning and decided violence for no reason sounded appealing. Meanwhile, the years of blockade, occupation, displacement, military bombardment, illegal settlements, and the deaths of Palestinian civilians beforehand are either minimized or erased entirely. Even major critiques of Western media coverage have pointed out that Palestinian suffering is routinely stripped of historical context in mainstream reporting. And that is exactly the point Owen Jones was making. But of course, we can't expect a Fox News reporter to understand that. Ben, I mean, the right-wingers, they're quaking in their boots. I mean, they're sharing 4-second clips to discredit Owen Jones. But it gets the clicks, it gets the views. I want to get your reactions.
Oh, it's pathetic, isn't it? Okay, first of all, I think a message to Owen, to Sangeeta Maiska, to the many journalists who have actually stood up and taken a stand for Palestinian rights, but also have pushed for the lost art of journalistic analysis and critical journalism. My solidarity with you. Honestly, my goddamn solidarity with you, because I cannot wait for the day that everyone pretends that they always agreed with you. And I want to be there calling out the people who just lied through their teeth, or are going to lie through their teeth and say that they agreed with you. Because so many voices have chosen oppression, they've chosen hate, they have chosen genocide, they've chosen to support a genocide, they've chosen to look at history, look at the facts of how genocide happens. There's no excuse at this point. At this point, if you are still defending Israel, you're still defending the crimes of Israel, you're fucking scum. And I think the people who clipped this, there's no way, absolutely no way, that they didn't know what they were doing when they took Owen's clip out of context. Absolutely no way. They knew exactly what they were doing. And I think one of the only answers to this has to be, first of all, X is a cesspit. And second of all, we need to start thinking about nationalizing our media space, because, and I will make this brief, but I think it is an interesting discussion that we should have another time. Anyone could be a victim of deepfakes and of clipping these days. You or I, anybody who appears on any media show, somebody who's interviewed in the street can be a victim of clipping or deepfakes to completely reverse the meaning of what they said. And I think the only way that we can regulate that, the only way we can stop that taking over our media space, is by taking it out of the hands of the oligarchs so that they can't fill it with bots who will boost this bullshit. And poor Owen has to go through under each comment and reply with the video with the full context, because X doesn't do the correct thing and immediately put a community note on that saying this clip is taken out of context, here's the full context. We need a democratic control of our media spaces. The online world is one of the only ones where we just accept the fact that billionaires and large companies just control it all. And we need to be like pushing back against that. If I was in charge of the UK government, one of the things that I would do, obviously there's a lot of things that I would do, but one of the things that I would do is create a democratic social media platform that's run by, say, the state, nationalized at first, and then we can look at like cooperative ownership or something like that in the long run, to stop this sort of thing happening, and to make sure that we don't have to waste our time dealing with idiots. Because today it's Owen Jones being clipped out of context. But tomorrow, the people who are clipping Owen Jones out of context could find themselves clipped out of context. It's a feudal system that is just the worst one to deal with. And no one wants to live in a feudal society. This is precisely why we came up with systems of democracy and legitimizing the legitimate authority being placed in the sovereignty of all people to act collectively. If we apply that in our everyday lives, there's no reason why we shouldn't apply that to the online world. And a big fuck you to the people who clipped Owen Jones out of context to try and make him look like he was justifying war crimes when he was actually doing the opposite and saying that one war crime doesn't justify another.
Yeah. Jim Speak in the comments said prescribe Twitter. That's probably the only description I can get behind.
Yeah.
No, excellent. I think there's a genuine conversation about ownership when it comes to social media. It cannot continue. We cannot have, look, it's not just, we can't have the whims of a billionaire controlling the means of communication. Certainly can't have a delusional white supremacist Nazi loser baby who pretends to be his own mum on Twitter controlling the means of communication. Yeah, let's send that segue, or segment even, and let's go to our comment section with Callum Taylor as our producer.
Hello, good evening. How is everybody?
Yeah, very good. Very good show.
Good. Yeah, it's a good show. You may say so yourself, Curtis, when you were hosting.
I do, yeah.
Yeah, no, great show. Let me just have a look. I was just reading online, just having some updates at the Zach Polanski, not Zach Polanski. Bloody hell. There's not a coup to get rid of him. The Keir Starmer resignation announcements. The most recent figure I've seen is actually 73 now.
73.
Yeah. It's also
I should say,
go on.
Honestly, like I was just going to say, almost every time I said Keir Starmer's name, I was resisting the urge to say Keir Starmer, who is Prime Minister at time of recording, because by the time we're finished...
Yeah.
And also, there is also, while we've been on air, there's been or in the last couple of hours, there's been a WhatsApp leak from 2024 Labour MPs. MP Natasha Ryan's MP has actually tweeted out saying, I'm not one for publicly sniping at each other, but seeing as that's been taken out of my hands, I stand by this. After she said in the group chat, bottom line, changing leader because Nigel Farage has forced us to is not something any of us can come back from. Anyone who thinks we can needs to wake up. Peter Lamb MP responded, anyone who thinks this is sustainable needs an MRI. Alison Gardner piped up and said, be nice. And Josh Newbury responded this with a fire emoji and a 100% emoji to what Natasha Ryan said. Lawrence Turner MP then quips in and says, we get enough insults on our socials. Let's leave them out. Let's leave them out here.
Mate.
Bye.
And then we get, Nestle Kaliskan MP says, this is really rude. I think that's Neil, but he spelt his name wrong on the thing. And then Natasha responds, I don't think this is rude. I've heard worse. Peter and I are fine. And then Oliver Ryan pipes up and says, another MP, and says, remember guys, this chat is leaky. Just posting this again. Peter Lamb then pops in and says, apologies if anyone is offended, but there's a back and forth going on here. And as to Oliver Ryan MP's comment, the chat then got leaked. So they're all rowing between themselves.
Labour MPs are utter bastards. They will stab each other in the back. That's why it's leaked, by the way.
But also,
it's also worth pointing out as well, though, that and actually Luke Akehurst of all people have pointed this out, but it is a point that needs making, is that the 80 threshold in terms of MPs against Starmer is actually relevant to one candidate having 81 people back them to say that they can stand in the leadership challenge. It doesn't just mean 81 MPs saying we call on Starmer to resign. So even if 100 MPs call on him to resign, unless they're all saying, and we also support X candidate, that won't
that's why Jeremy
automatically...
Corbyn didn't go when they called a vote of no confidence Jeremy.
Yeah, it won't automatically trigger a leadership election. But yeah, so just some updates on what's going on there.
Okay, they are slimy, they're backstabbers, absolutely. But also, they're idiots. They're fucking idiots. Because, like, you heard what was said there, what Callum read out. They said, we shouldn't change prime ministers because Nigel Farage has forced us to. They think Nigel Farage did this to them.
Yeah.
They're morons. They don't get it. They still don't get it.
She said she's tweeted and she says she stands by that. So
they still do not get it, right? Look at Professor John Curtis, Sir John Curtis, I think he is, the most respected pollster in Britain, political analyst, polling analyst in Britain, and he's come out and said very clearly that Labour lost because the Greens took their votes. The areas where they lost, it was either Plaid Cymru or the Greens were taking their votes. They were losing voters to the Greens, to progressive parties, and they still don't get it. It makes me think, the fact that this WhatsApp has leaked today, it makes me think they really are that incapable of introspection that they are just going to burn the party, and the Green Party is going to become the progressive voice in Britain. It's going to become the voice of the trade unions. It's going to be, because like if you can't manage the level of introspection to be able to see that you're losing voters to the Greens, not to Reform.
Yeah.
I can't help you, bro. I don't know what else you can do. Sorry, that pissed me off.
No, I mean it's fair. But let's have a look at the super chat. So Michael has gifted 1 Turn Left membership. Thank you very much for that. Let's have a look. Yuri Gibson has tweeted 5 Turn Left memberships.
Thank you, Yuri.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Those. Andrina has gifted 1 Turn Left membership, and apologies if you can hear the helicopter flying above head. I don't know whether that's picking up on a microphone or not, but it's very loud.
They're after you.
Nigel Farage is on his way to Clacton.
We've had well, he just fly by chopper, and he was this way. I was looking for him.
He also is a fucking chopper. So.
Len McBain has donated £2 and says, "Hi Ben."
Len McBain, the famous Len McBain. We know it's not Ben.
You know it's not me because I was talking. I was.
Although, why is like specifically hi Ben?
It's just hi Ben.
You could have typed that yourself.
I mean, I could have done, but like I didn't. I don't know. I still don't know who runs that account.
Steve MC81 has gifted 20 Turn Left memberships. Thank you so much for that.
Thank you, Steve. Appreciate
and thanks
it.
to everyone there that's received them as well. Jacob has sent £5 and said, "Finally, we have pro Millward content on Turn Left. Makes a change. Justice for Rachel Millward." We've always been in support of Rachel. We like Rachel Millward. I do anyway. Can't speak on behalf of the whole of Turn Left. I don't see anyone that doesn't though. She's great.
But also,
she's great.
I met her recently. It's good to see her get fiery. It's good to see her out there on the front lines. Because that can't be the only one, right?
Yeah, and actually, I noticed this. I think since she appeared on Question Time, literally like not the one just gone, but the one the week before. In the space of literally that 7 days, she's had loads of media appearances in the run up to the election, and I think it's been great to see her. And I'm really glad because for a very long time after the elections, I say a long time, I mean it was only even 6 months ago. Can you believe it's not even been that long since the leadership of the Green Party changed, given how far we've come in that time? But in a very short space of time, really recently, we've seen the Green Party start to use Rachel a lot more in the media appearances. For a long time, people didn't really know who she was. They'd not heard of her. Everybody knew Mutton's name because of controversies and other sort of not particularly positive press around him. But a lot of people didn't know that Rachel was the other deputy. And I think there's no question now that people definitely know who she is. And it's great. And she's always welcome on here. I did an interview with her when she was running to be deputy. Yeah, it was great to have her on. And that was a great interview, by the way, between yourself, Curtis, and Rachel. I just want to give you some credit there because I hadn't watched it. I got it earlier, but I'd not watched it all the way through until we put it out tonight. And yeah, I thought it was a cracker. So. Yeah. Well done you. That sounds patronising, but I mean it. Not really Rachel Atwood has sent us $2 and said, "That's talking vag in a team."
Vag space Inez.
Oh, vagina, sorry. It's the space, yeah.
Vag space Inez. Nice. Oh God, yeah. Am I supposed to respond to that? I don't know what to respond to that. What am I going to respond to that? Yeah, no. It's absolutely like it is genuinely just how to view women. When you reduce it down, they just think that what defines a woman is her genitalia. Like that's literally it to them.
Dominique has gifted 1 Turn Left membership, as has Deus Ex Ollie. Excuse me.
Thank you, guys.
Len McBain is back.
Oh, Jesus.
This time with £20. Thank you, Len.
Oh, blimey. Thank you.
And said, "One image published online, suddenly your entire identity open to exploitation."
Literally.
It's so true though. I mean, it's not even that now with AI. You don't even need an image on there. You just create one.
Just create one.
Yeah.
Thanks for that donation, Len.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah,
Very
see,
generous.
it would make no sense for Ben to donate £20 to yourself at this rate, would it?
Yeah, especially as YouTube take a cut
Yeah,
of it. So that
exactly.
would be
Yeah, that wouldn't make any sense.
But yeah,
Well, we know for a fact it's not you now.
yeah. Thank you. They didn't believe me.
Antifa Vegan Boy has gifted 10 Turn Left memberships. In
Thank
fairness, Ben, you don't help yourself with the amount of alt accounts you have on places like TikTok,
True.
where it's literally
True.
you but with a moustache on your
It's
profile picture.
hilarious. Yeah, I take the profile picture that I use. Can I actually? I reckon I can bring that up on here. This this thing, like this profile picture that I use, and I've just put like a glasses and a big false moustache on it, and it's like not Antifa cock. I love it because somebody will like I'll piss somebody off. It's so stupid, but I'll piss somebody off in a debate so much, and they'll drop me from their panel and they'll block me, and I'll be back a second later and be like, "Hey, it's me
like
again."
It's like the Simpsons meme when you kick out Barney. And
and he just appears
behind him.
It's so good.
So yeah. I'm just gonna whiz through some of the other comments that I've starred because there's been some really good ones, but I'm just aware of time. Who's at 93 has said, it's bad when Laura Kuenssberg is actually doing her job.
I know, right?
Yeah.
I know, but again, I thought she did a bad job at pushing back. But yeah, it does. It goes to show that.
I like this
now
one
and again.
from Jamie as well, who said, if they think that's bad, wait till they hear what Zach Polanski said about the police.
Oh, no. He did a retweet.
Oh,
how dare he?
I love that.
This one I thought was interesting from Ian Grant, who said Reform got a lower share of the vote this time than at the last local elections. They don't want, quotes, more reform. They want less.
Well, actually, I have an exclusive interview with Sam Bright, journalist for The Smog UK. I spoke to him on Sunday. Going to try and get it up for tomorrow. And we speak about reform for like 45 minutes, and he basically explains to me that the results for reform isn't as good as what a lot of people expect, and that actually it's not a foregone conclusion that we're facing a reform government. The pessimist in me was kind of like, really? But actually I felt like he convinced me a lot.
We do have a shocking electoral system, though, that means
we do have a shocking electoral system that as well.
The majority of people can say they don't want reform, but I know what's going to happen, and this will happen if Burnham gets in, I think there's a bigger chance, and we'll talk about Burnham in a minute before we go, but I think if Burnham gets in, there's a higher chance that we will get proportional representation. He's quite a big advocate for it. That said, though, reform, until they started doing well, were always in favour of PR. And I cannot wait to see Nigel Farage try and convince people on the media rounds how he's really, really angry if the government decide they're going to introduce proportional representation.
Yeah.
Because it's clearly to try and overrule democracy.
We need first past post for stable governments.
Was an advocate for it for almost his entire political career until suddenly it became very convenient for him not to have it.
Vicky Clear's given us an update.
Oh, go on.
On the Starmer saga.
Oh, happened.
Breaking Home Secretary Shabana Mahmood and 2 other senior cabinet ministers have told Keir Starmer to set out a resignation time. And of course, Shabana Mahmood is a Home Secretary. It's one of the top jobs. Is calling for him to go. I mean, you want Keir Starmer to stay, it sounds like.
No, I'm just thinking I am a principled believer in like the lesser of two evils. So now I'm going to have to come out as a Starmerite. I'm going to have to fucking back him to the hilt now. Because if Shabana Mahmood wants him to resign, fuck, I've got to damn it. I've got to come all out.
Now a pro Starmer channel.
I'm a pro Starmer now.
The thing is, though, is that if they have a leadership election really soon, we're looking at maybe Angela Rayner. If Burnham can't get in, and I still want to speak about Burnham in a second, but also and Wes Streeting, right? And someone said in the comments earlier, I think it might have even been Leo. Apologies if it wasn't you, Leo, if it was somebody else. But somebody said earlier that apparently there's rumours that if Streeting stands, Ed Miliband might put his name in the hat as well, because I mean that worked brilliantly for him last time. But the thing that frustrates me in all of this is there is a lot of arrogance at the moment coming out of the Labour Party around Andy Burnham. You know, this idea that he's got some divine right to just walk into a seat, get elected as an MP, and then walk into number 10 as the Prime Minister. I think it just comes across as arrogant. And are the government seriously saying, and people like Angela Rayner, and this whole setting out a timetable. Let's be realistic here. This setting out a resignation timetable isn't for just transition. It isn't so that we can do something smoothly. It's so they can wait, find a place for, find someone who's willing to resign and give up their seat and give up their role as an MP in order to shoehorn Andy Burnham in, because there are many in the party who think that he will be the best man suited for the job. And listen, I would much rather Andy Burnham be running the country right now than Keir Starmer. Granted, there's lots of issues with him, as it was pointed out earlier. He's a Blairite, right? But I'll tell you what, the country will be a million times better off than it is now if he's running the show than this lot that we've got or Wes Street in. However, the arrogance to tell the electorate, could you imagine if you're watching this now, could you imagine if it ends up being in your constituency where your MP says, I'm going to resign so that Andy Burnham can stand? What they are saying to you as a member of the electorate is, Andy Burnham is going to win this seat, and you have to make sure he wins this seat because he's the only man that can fix the country, and he has a right to win this seat and get into number 10. Well, fuck that. People aren't going to want to vote for that. It's arrogant. People are going to fight against it. Reform UK are absolutely going to put up a fight. And I was speaking to some sources in the Green Party today who tell me that, dependent on the seat, but who tell me that they are prepared to put up a huge fight against Andy Burnham as well if he chooses to stand in certain seats where the Greens have a good chance of winning. And if you look at how Green Manchester just went, I mean, there's a good chance that that is going to be the case, unless he's going to go and take Stephen Flynn's seat and stand as a Labour candidate in Aberdeenshire. I mean,
I tend to think the closer proximity Andy Burnham has to Westminster, the worse he becomes. When he's in the Westminster bubble, he's not good.
He also doesn't like Westminster. He hates it. When I spoke to him a few years ago,
but he can't stick to a political position. But when he's outside the Westminster bubble, he's a great mayor. So I'm just like, I want him to be far away from Westminster.
I did just see a tweet from a friend of the show, Zoe Gardner.
Yeah.
And she said if they get their act together and find a Manchester seat for Burnham, the smart move for the Greens will be to go hard as possible to win the mayoralty and leave the by-election low key. Burnham is a plausible partner to work with in the future, and a Green mayor of Manchester would be a huge coup, which I thought that was quite an interesting take. But it depends where he chooses to stand. I'm not being funny though. If Burnham chooses to stand in a Manchester seat that the Greens have a good chance of winning, why wouldn't they stand?
He's potentially their Boris Johnson, right? He's what to Zach Polanski, he's what Nigel Farage and Boris Johnson would have the same relationship essentially as Zach Polanski and Andy Burnham. Potentially, because he's somebody who is. He'll use that populism to get himself elected, but if he doesn't stick to it, the real populists, your Farages or your Polanski, will pull the rug out from underneath them, and pull the support out from underneath them, and they'll still be riding clear in 5-10 years' time.
I just want to bring up some comments that we were of the earlier topic that we were just talking about in regards to Rachel and Piers Morgan. Where is it? Flintlock Flytrap said this in regards to what you were saying, Ben. Yep. They say, let me get this right, because intellectual dishonesty has visible power when someone like Tice uses it, then we should all prioritise intellectually dishonest strategies for ourselves? 3 question marks. This was in relation to you talking about the way that Tice deflects from what is being asked. What are your thoughts on that?
Yep. Do you want to win? Do you want to win?
Yeah.
If not, okay, fine. But the thing is like let's have the conversation about intellectual dishonesty, because I agree with you. The process of bridging, which is a legitimate technique in media theory and in media training, the process of bridging is in itself a small amount dishonest. I'd agree with you on that. But the thing is if we win, we can then prioritize honesty. Prioritize dishonesty, fuck. If we win, we can prioritize honesty, and we can, I don't know, introduce media reform that makes our media more honest. right? If we win, we can do that. And I know the if we win thing is kind of tainted by how the Blairites use it, because the Blairites were like, by copying Nigel Farage, we can win. And they said to Jeremy Corbyn, well, it was all for nothing. You won the argument, did you? It's all for nothing if you didn't win. And it's just shown how wrong they were about that, because what they were doing was, you know, if you give up all your principles in the process, absolutely it would be wrong to adopt reform strategies if adopting reform strategies means also adopting their beliefs. But if you are doing it to change the system, to make things more honest, to hold the media to account, to do Leveson 2.0, which we've needed to do in this country for years, I'm down for it. Because also Bernie Sanders, Zoran Mamdani, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Zach Polanski, just other successful leftist figures, Jeremy Corbyn, they're all like pro-trans, right? They're all in favour of trans rights. These extraordinarily successful people. And yet, because they focus on cost of living, because they bridge when they're asked about these things, because they don't spend time arguing with disingenuous Zionists and people who aren't interested in your beliefs about whether women have a penis or whatever bullshit the media are asking you about, making you answer for like the 0.0004% of Green Party people who say disgusting things, because they don't waste their time with that and they bridge across. They win, and then those trans people get protections written into law. Like, that's what we want to see. Like,
I think it's not being dishonest, being smart politics. That's two different things. I mean, you're not lying when you pivot to something you want to talk about. That's not being dishonest or lying. Lying is lying, and of course, if Zach Polanski was just being a liar like Keir Starmer, we call it out and we wouldn't know how to trust him. But being smart at politics is a necessity. I think for a long, long time, the left has been, oh, well, we just need to be really, really honest and the people will come. We tried that. I mean, for me, and I'll say this before, but I'll say it again, Jeremy Corbyn, to me, had integrity. He was honest, and the way he would speak would be quite nuanced, and I liked it. But the majority of the public saw him as a weak leader. So what does that tell you? At the end of the day, I'm sick and tired of losing. I'm sick and tired of losing when it comes to the economy working for the billionaire class. I'm sick and tired of losing when it comes to immigration. I'm sick and tired of seeing trans people being battered, right? Not just by the Conservatives and right-wing parties, but the so-called progressive parties under Labour. And if we want to rescue queer people and minorities from oppressive governments, if we want to stand up for the working class of this country and take on the oligarchs, right, then we need to win. I'm over the moral high ground now. I went through that phase and I'm over it. And I don't really care what people think about me if I do that, because I'm sick and tired of losing. My entire life, our entire lives, I mean, we're all millennials here, our entire life has been losing. We, grown up, I mean, we weren't working, but there was the 2008 financial crisis. We saw our parents worrying, and we went into a job market post-2008. Then we had the Conservative government with austerity, and they used austerity to pay bankers bonuses despite them crashing the economy whilst killing 330,000 people. Then we had COVID. Then we have a genocide in Gaza. Now we have an Iran war. Now we have fascist Trump. Now we are looming on a reform government who are complete bitches to capital and Trump. And over and over again, our generation has been battered left, right, and centre, and I'm fucking done with it. So I don't care if we start acting like assholes in politics. If that's what we need to do to win, I will take it.
And To end on something a little bit more positive, I agree. By the way,
sorry, it does sound very negative sometimes when we put it like that.
It was a rallying
No,
cry,
it's
if
true.
anything. So
It's
not
a
negative, it was a rallying cry.
We want to take you with us as well.
Just two things. One that I thought was quite just a smart point from Becca, and then also just another comment on Rachel just to end. Becca said, "I grew 2 penises in my womb room. You fellas only grew 1 each. So who's the big knob now?"
Boom.
It's good.
I like that one. That's a good one.
And just this one again from Ian Grant, which I just thought was interesting. Ian says, in many ways, I think Rachel Millward is even more effective as a political debater and front person than Zach Polanski.
I think they both have their different strengths. I think she's. Last question time was really, really good. But I think Zach Polanski has the more of the populist shine to him, a bit more aggressive. So.
I think. Oh, go on, Ben.
Sorry, I was just going to say. What I would urge from the Green Party is take your talented speakers, put them through proper media training, and start getting them out there the way that Reform do, right? Layla Cunningham is nobody, but she's she's not nobody. She's an elected councillor, but my point is she's a skilled speaker, right? And because she's a skilled speaker, it doesn't matter that she only occupies a council seat, right? Yeah. Put those people out into the media because they are A, your potential future leaders, B, they'll all have speaking styles that appeal to different people and you will massively stretch out your base, and C, a good foundation is built on many different points of balance, right? I'm trying to put this the right way. A strong base is based over a wide area. A strong base of support is based over a wide set of speakers, a large number of people.
Appeals to a
we don't want to be exactly, but also we don't want to be the Zach Polanski party. Yeah. Much as I love Zach, we want that style to be picked up and used by other people, so that if Zach goes down, we don't all go down with him. Because at the moment, if Farage goes down, the Reform goes down.
I think
Tice
that's
has
the
no
point
source,
that,
right?
I think that's the point that Zach was making. You know, when you said that when you spoke to him the first time around as well. You know, it isn't about him. It's about uplifting, other people. As much
and the
as
left
possible,
cannot fall for the same mistake last time, which is that we all rallied behind Jeremy Corbyn, of course, but we did not create an era of left-wing leaders. Ever since Jeremy Corbyn lost, we have not created a pool of talent. We just haven't. We've been atomized, we've been defeated, and we've waited for someone else to come along. And Zach Polanski's come along. But when Zach Polanski goes, right, his time will come. Maybe he becomes Prime Minister, but then, of course, he steps down after that, or he loses the election badly. We have no one to replace it. We need to create an army of left-wing communicators.
Speaking of, Gunt D has asked, has Ben had media training? I think Ben's the one that's giving media training out at this rate.
I'm self-taught, but I've done a lot of reading on it. I can fairly easily get a hold of a lot of books on these subjects.
Mehdi Hassan.
I think you're giving off that vibe, Ben. But listen, I'm going to drop down. It's getting late, but thank you to both of you, and thanks to everyone that's commented as well, as always.
Thank you.
We always appreciate your comments. And I'm sorry we didn't get through more of them. There was loads of fantastic ones. Just one that I've just seen, actually, just really quickly. Sorry. That one's gone as just said, Turn Left should get an interview with Ellie Chowns. Curtis did interview Ellie and Zach when they were both running for the leadership. But absolutely, we'd love to get them on. And also, I'll tell you that I think the only person that we've not spoken to is Sian Berry out of the Green Party elected.
Yeah, we've done the rounds without Sian.
We've spoken to, I think, everybody else at some point. So let's make it happen. But anyway, thank you very much, and I'll see you all later.
Thank you, Callum. Longer show, but I thought it was a fantastic show. I love it when me and you were on, Ben.
Yeah, it's good
we
fun.
Had some really interesting discussions.
Classics as well.
Classics, yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Ben. It's been a long day for you, but I really appreciate you coming on. Of course, that is all we have time for. Thank you to all our viewers. Thank you to all of our super chats and comments. Again, you guys are brilliant. We have such a good community at Turn Left. We are one of the best. No, we are the best. We're the best community at Turn Left. Of course, if you want to support our work, you can go to turnleftmedia.co.uk/support. There you can support us on Patreon, or there is a one-off link. Of course, you could also become a YouTube member for 99p. Remember, we go live every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 7:30 p.m. I'm Curtis Daly. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next time.